When people talk about American slavery, they often picture chains, whips, and endless fields. But some of the most damaging violence didn't always leave scars you could see. Slavery was not only about controlling labor, it was about controlling human bodies intimately, legally, and without consequence. To understand American slavery fully, we have to look beyond what was visible, beyond punishment, beyond what history books often summarize in a few restrained paragraphs. From the earliest days of enslavement in the Americas, power was enforced through total domination. Enslaved people were legally defined as property, not persons. That single distinction erased consent, privacy, and any hope for protection under the law. Slavery was a total system one that reached into every corner of life. It governed where people slept, how they worked, whom they loved, and whether their families could remain intact. For enslaved women, this meant living under constant vulnerability. Their lives unfolded in a system where personal boundaries did not exist, where resistance carried terrifying consequences, and where silence was often the only means of survival. What happened to them was not random or hidden, it was embedded into the very structure of slavery itself, and it was profitable. Colonial laws declared that a child inherited the status of the mother. This transformed exploitation into an economic strategy. Every child born into bondage increased a slaveholder's wealth without the cost of purchase. Abuse was not just tolerated, it was incentivized. By the 19th century, the evidence was everywhere. Tens of thousands of enslaved people were of mixed ancestry, living proof of a system that normalized violation while refusing to even name it. These children occupied a painful in-between space connected by blood to the ruling class, yet legally bound to enslavement. This reality did not affect women alone. Enslaved men were also stripped of autonomy in ways history has often avoided discussing. Their personal lives, partnerships, and futures were routinely dictated by those who owned them. Family bonds were treated as inconveniences, easily overridden by profit and power. Marriage, love, and parenthood existed under constant threat. Families could be broken apart at a moment's notice. Children could be taken. Partners could be reassigned. The emotional toll of this instability was immense, and it was intentional. A population kept emotionally off balance was easier to control. The law offered no refuge. Enslaved people had no recognized right to bodily autonomy. Harm done to them was framed as damage to property, not injury to a human being. Courts routinely reinforced this logic, making justice impossible. Because the system refused to record these violations as crimes, much of what we know today comes from personal accounts, memories passed down, narratives written after escape, and stories shared decades later. Together, they paint a consistent picture. Fear was constant, vulnerability was normalized, and protection was non-existent. Enslaved people were constantly watched, evaluated, and measured not as individuals, but as assets. Their value was calculated in labor output, physical strength, and, for many, their ability to produce future laborers. children could be sold away. Parents lived with the constant fear that their families could be dismantled at the will of someone else. Love existed, but it was always conditional, subject to profit and convenience. Because the law did not record these experiences, history relies on other sources. Narratives written by formerly enslaved people, oral histories passed down through generations, interviews conducted decades later when survivors finally had space to speak. Across time and geography, these accounts echo one another. Different voices, different lives. The same themes: fear, endurance, impossible choices, and the quiet strength required to survive under constant threat. These testimonies remind us that enslaved people were not passive victims. They were thinkers, planners, parents, and protectors navigating a system stacked entirely against them. Resistance did not always look like open rebellion. Sometimes it was running away. Some fought back when they could. Some made impossible choices in an effort to protect themselves or their children. And sometimes resistance meant surviving long enough to keep memory alive. These acts may not always appear dramatic in history books, but they required extraordinary courage. Survival itself was an act of defiance. The consequences of this history did not end with emancipation. The stereotypes that emerged during slavery about black bodies, black sexuality, and black identity did not disappear. They evolved. They hardened. They were later used to justify segregation, violence, and systemic inequality. Families carried trauma forward. Communities inherited wounds they never chose. The echoes of these violations shaped relationships, self-perception, and societal structures long after slavery officially ended. Modern conversations about generational trauma, mistrust of institutions, and disparities in health and well-being cannot be separated from this history. Silence became inherited. Questions went unanswered, not because they were unimportant, but because the pain surrounding them was too deep. And yet, from these conditions also emerged incredible resilience. Culture, music, faith, and storytelling became vessels of survival. Through them, people reclaimed their voice, memory, and meaning. Pain was transformed into testimony. Culture became a vessel for truth. Music carried memory when speech was too dangerous. Faith offered language for suffering and hope. Storytelling preserved what official records erased. These traditions did more than comfort, they asserted humanity in a world that denied it. Understanding this hidden dimension of slavery is not about dwelling on the past or assigning guilt to the present. It is about recognizing how power, silence, and dehumanization operate and how their effects travel across generations. It's about understanding how harm can be normalized when it is profitable. And it is about honoring those who endured a system designed to break them by refusing to look away. Only by confronting this history honestly can we fully understand the present, honor those who endured it, and ensure that systems built on domination are never allowed to take root again. Only by telling the full story without sensationalism and without erasure can we begin to understand how deeply this history shaped the world we live in today. And only then can we ensure it is never repeated. Thanks for watching.